Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of 108 Stitches Baseball Talk. While many of you folks are watching the Home Run Derby out for All-Star Week, we're going to have ourselves a little derby of our own as we talk about the great American pastime. And I'm pleased to be joined by Eric Katz. Welcome tonight, Eric.
Thank you, Scott.
George Eichhorn.
Welcome, Scott, and everybody. Good to be on.
And Jacob Christner.
I'll tell you this right now. They're hitting home runs over there, and I'm going to be hitting home run takes right here.
Atta boy. That's the first appearance for Jacob Christner on 108 Stitches Baseball Talk. I know he's going to fit in real well. I even picked a topic that I'm going to lead off with him because I know he's actually another version of Rick Curdy as Mr. Opinion, and he's going to need one here or what I'm about to hit.
Yeah, but I overthink mine. He's just like, okay.
Exactly. That's why this topic was definitely made for you. Okay, so with that said, without any further delays, in the bad timing department, New York Yankees Jimmy Cordero has been suspended the rest of the year for violating Major League Baseball's joint domestic violence, sexual assault, and child abuse policy. The suspension will cover the rest of the regular season and any postseason games. Cordero, who's 31 years of age, made 31 appearances, 3.86 ERA, and 32 2/3 innings. Well, I'll tell you what, he's got some problems, but there's no excuses for Mr. Cordero, right, Jacob?
Not at all.
What he did here.
You got to realize, you want to know when it all started little by little by little? OJ. They left OJ alone to be an abuser so much over those, and he was different people, different everything. And then, he was the nice guy. Remember on TV, he was the guy with the smile on those Hertz ads. It was all that stuff. And then until he gets the arrest warrant, you know what I'm saying? Until he gets the arrest warrant, not when he got killed her, but when he had a thing, we didn't know anything. But now you can't do that anymore. You cannot do any of these things. And then, because you look at it this way, you look at Bauer. You look at Bauer outage, as they call this. You look at him, truthfully, I mean, mind you, is he a nasty individual? Yes, he is. But he's really a freak. He's just got a freakish kink. In any other era, he probably gets away with it and just say, well, I have this, whatever, and people would look through it. Not even anymore. Not even anymore. It's like the whole abuse. I mean, you can't do any kind of abuse or any of that stuff. I mean, they're doing this with women, too. There was a couple of WNBA women with their wives that got suspended. They're not putting up with anyone. So this is that world now. We can't be doing – everybody has to watch a little bit, and it's like they're not even asking questions. Remember, Pat Fitzgerald's gone. They're not even letting you ask questions anymore. So you just really – it's more that you have to be careful because they want you to be guilty, and you have to prove yourself innocent.
You know, I could count on you to bring up that O.J. Simpson reference. I knew you were going to do it. That's you work with a guy like
BNTA.
I'm telling you, Jacob, I was waiting. And you made me look like a genius when you were going with O.J. All right, we'll go to George next. Mr. Cordero has his team in a little bit of a jackpot here, right, George?
Oh, yeah, most definitely. And I agree with Jacob. Obviously, there's no room for this kind of behavior. And, you know, the sad part is that these cases happen again and again and again. They cross over different sports, baseball, basketball, football, some in hockey. You know, that's happened there. And obviously even into the broadcast area with former announcers getting in trouble. But I'll tell you what, you know, that's not what the Yankee fans wanted to hear or the team. Losing out one of their top pitchers like that. I mean, obviously, but the game is small compared to what we have to do in our lives and how we should behave. And anytime you cross that line, you are taking a very, very bad stance as far as I'm concerned, because you're crossing over something. Oh, maybe I don't think I'm going to get caught. Or, oh, that wasn't very severe what I did to her or him. In beating somebody or whatever. No, you just don't take those chances. We shouldn't be taking those chances even in our own lives, in and out of sports. You know, it could happen to anybody I know in situations, but I tell you what, there is zero tolerance. And baseball, Major League Baseball, I appreciate them stepping in And trust me, they obviously do a thorough investigation of all of these type of incidents. And all I got to say is shame, shame, shame. You shouldn't have done it. And you've now have hurt not only yourself and your family, you've hurt the Yankees and their obviously attempt to contend in the American League East.
All right. Ken Ballrick just stopped in to say hi. And by the way, happy birthday, Ken.
Hey, Ken.
Hope you have a great birthday. Can't say in chat, but just you thought about us is all well and good. Once again, happy birthday. All right, Eric, you have the final word on this topic.
Well, first off, it's deserved. I mean, it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter the team. Doesn't matter the situation. Doesn't matter if they're in the World Series or not contending at all. It's deserved what happened to Jimmy Cordero. I mean, his own teammate Domingo Germán had a spat of his own a little while back, and I'm sure he heard of what's gone on in the NFL. But the fact of the matter is that news camera is 24 hours. It no longer shuts off like it used to. So no matter what you do, if you're at a bar, at a club, at your house, that camera is right there. I mean, because everybody wants that sizzling story. Don't give it to them because everyone sooner or later is going to be hearing about it. Like you can't walk into anywhere these days without being caught on camera. And the thing of the matter is he knew the rule. MLB is very, very explicit about it because MLB, even prior to Jimmy Cordero and Domingo Germán, had plenty of issues with domestic violence before that. Chuck Knobloch, for example. And he knows the rules. I'm sure he's heard about what happened. He knows what happens to these people in the media and how society views them and how they're viewed ultimately by their teams and Major League Baseball. He knew, but he goes ahead and decides to do it anyway. Shame on him. I'm glad he's suspended for the year, and I hope he never plays baseball again.
Yeah, well, you saw what happened to Ray Rice, right?
Right.
Once you get it on camera, that was the end of his football career. All right.
Well, real quickly, the thing about it, Eric, is the ego. What happens with it is someone has a quick temper like that. Like, obviously, if you're snapping and smacking someone around, you got a quick temper, and you're not thinking. You're just saying in that moment, I don't care anymore. I don't care. It's like they did this. That's their fault. It's everything like that. It's after the fact, like 5 minutes later, I'm screwed. And it's like, that is the whole point of when you hear of a Bruce Lee and people read Bruce Lee books and they read all this stuff. And that's what you need to do, be like water, settle down. Oh. It's like, that's not enough athletes doing that kind of thing because they are so much testosterone and there's so much everything and they don't know how to shut it off.
Well, there's plenty of athletes for as much negative publicity as the media likes to dig up on athletes, which let's be honest, they do it all the time. Let's not hide from that fact because But the fact of the matter is, some athletes know how to shut it down. There's countless athletes that do all the time. They go on the field, they perform, and then they go home and they're like everybody else. But Jimmy Cordero. It's written. It doesn't matter the situation. Doesn't matter how the situation. Doesn't matter how brief or how long he did it. The fact of the matter is, because we'll never know, because MLB and the Yankees haven't really explained that. Which, to be truthful, I'm kind of glad they didn't, because I think for the longest time, I think people involved in those leagues and investigations and the media have shared a little too much to the point where we really don't want to know. But the fact of the matter is, he messed up. He knew the rule. MLB explicitly puts it in all their contracts. It's right there. I'm sure it's written in the locker room, just like the I don't know if they do now, but the gambling rule was in the locker room. Pete Rose knew about that, and it's written right in his office. But the fact of the matter is, he messed up, and now he has. There's a price to be paid, and he loses his season, and ultimately he doesn't help his team.
Yeah, and referring to what you're saying, Eric, that's a good point. When you talk about Major League Baseball joint domestic violence, sexual assault, and abuse policy, you rest assured that's in clubhouses. They know it, so that reinforces what you're saying. All right, so with that said, let's move on to the Miami Marlins, a team I'm all too familiar with. They're 53 and 39, second place National League East. Just took 2 of 3 from the Philadelphia Phillies. Jorge Soler and Luis Arias, unbelievable, these guys. So what a story this is. You have Skip Schumacher, Kim Ng, and of course Don Mattingly worked with the club for quite a while, and he's with the Jays. So I like what the Marlins are doing, Eric.
Absolutely. I mean, look at Luis Arias. He's closer to 400. We have somebody who's been closer to 400 in a very long time, and obviously, the person who helped make, obviously Don Mattingly kind of shepherded that thing along, especially during some rough years.
Right.
But obviously, you got to give, which I hope you're listening, Chase. Derek Jeter kind of helped out with that too, signing Yuri Perez, your golden boy, who I think probably could be the ace. And he also hired Kim Ng, who's pushed all the right buttons there, especially making that Pablo Lopez trade for Luis Arias. But part of it was made possible by Derek Jeter. I hope you're listening, sitting on that couch eating your soup, Mr. Chase.
Eating your soup, or do you suck on soup?
There's vegetables in soup.
That is funny. You know what? Before I go any further after you, I really have to think about that one. Chase, obviously, you can tell Eric misses you. I should point out that 108 Stitches Baseball Talk is being broadcast around the world. The audio version of 108 Stitches Baseball Talk can be heard on iHeartRadio, Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever you get your podcasts. That's pretty good, Eric. You got me really distracted now. Please hit the red subscribe button on YouTube, South Florida Tribune. We're striving for 1,000 subscribers. Please also comment, like, and share the broadcast. Want to be a guest? No problem. Please participate in the chat room, or you can send topic ideas to southfloridatribune@gmail.com. Want to advertise cost efficiently? Call me at 954-304-4941. We broadcast live on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. Website www.southfloridatribune.com. You can find us on Twitter at Tribune South. Candy Ebling is behind the scenes and even in the chat room. Yeah. And coming up later this summer, the Motor City Mad Mouth Show will be debuting on the Agla Corp Media Studios in Boca Raton, Florida, owned by Dr. Edwin Hernandez. We'll keep you posted. The Agla Corp is a technology-based company for which now I am the president of broadcasting for the company. With that said, we'll turn it over to George Eichhorn. How about those Marlins?
I'll tell you what, Scott, they've done a hell of a job. I mean, a lot of people were thinking the Phillies were going to run away with it, look at how sad the St. Louis Cardinals are this year, but I'm telling you, Miami's doing a heck of a job. And, you got to go back, and like you said, I'm glad you brought that up, Eric, Jeter, and groundwork that was laid, and Don Mattingly, who I know Scott has covered on a regular basis. And, yes, they're reaping the benefits right now, but there's other people that have helped lay the groundwork. We saw that in Detroit when we got a guy named Ralph Houck of the New York Yankees to come over and to teach these young kids what it meant to be a winning team, a slow, agonizing process way back in the 1970s, but it set the stage for Sparky Anderson to come along from Cincinnati and the Big Red Machine to win in Detroit. So yes, there's always some group of people or individuals that are setting the table. And now Miami, the Marlins, I'm happy for you. You're reaping the rewards. And yes, Kim has done a great job as general manager. No question about it. Stu's done a great job. And, I'm happy for it. I think it's a good thing for baseball. Obviously, you guys have been lagging behind as far as having winning teams down there. And so I'm happy for Miami and the Marlins.
Well, Candy Ebling's seen enough of these games. Says good, young, good pitching, all guys playing hard and having fun. That's what we're seeing. All right, Jacob.
Oh, yeah. And see, I'll tell you this, Eric. You didn't see me when I was over here. It's the first time you've met me. I will say this and admit it. The first thing I was not fond of Kim Ng going to Miami because I've known who she was. So, and I've known the thing. She was in Chicago from 1990. She's been around forever. I wanted her. Miami has just not, other than a couple of the World Series, they've never shown that a lot of their teams has never shown that they were caring about winning, and it doesn't look like the first 2 years. I wonder in Chicago, as in the White Sox or any of the teams that look like they're going to give her something. But for all of this, for whatever they're going to give for a budget, for everything, all the credit in the world to her. I know what you were talking about there earlier, Eric. I know what you're saying, but she deserves. I mean, with Derek Jeter, but she deserves her credit.
100%.
She deserves her credit, and it's like, something. And they're gonna get to. I think they're getting to the playoffs. Don't get this wrong.
They will.
But even if they hypothetically didn't, or they got passed in the last week, she's made it big for women GMs now. They're going to get more regardless because they're already going to pass up those 72 wins that she had the first 2 years. They both had both those years were 72 wins. She's already going to pass that up, and she's going to get to that. And it's a fun team to watch. And you've got a guy who's at the high part, he's going to be about 360. At the low, about even still 315, 320.
That's still a good year.
Huh?
That's still a pretty good year.
I know. And it's like, that's what I was saying. Even if you have a tough September or something, who cares? You're not going to go under 300.
They're, I think, obviously Kim Ng has. I mean, the Marlins with Kim Ng are in the best position they've ever been under anybody. Yeah, they had They had the World Series in '97, and then they also had the World Series in 03. Yeah, 03, painfully. But but Kim Ng has that team in position to at least to make some noise. To at least make the postseason and hopefully make some noise in it. They're in the best position they've been in probably since I was in third grade. And I think hats off to her. I think now when teams start to turn over their front offices, depending on who that might be, it could be the Red Sox, could be any other team. Heck, might even be Philadelphia with Dombrowski, depending on how things go. But there's plenty of women out there who want to run a front office, who want to win. It kind of goes back to the famous line in the movie 42. They want to play, and so I think ultimately though, it's a terrific story. They have the right manager, Skip Schumacher, who came from St. Louis and knows how to win and knows how to get it done. And now they just have a great young team that's actually a lot of fun to watch. And I'm hoping with that young team that the ballpark will finally get its due and people will start coming to Miami's ballpark to take in a ball game.
Well, I've seen enough of their games. I'll tell you one thing about this club here. They play hard. They play together. It's a really close-knit clubhouse. And a lot of championship teams have close-knit clubhouses. I love Don Mattingly. I kid you not. But I have to tell you, I'm pleasantly surprised by Skip Schumacher. I got to give the guy a little, he has a good sense of humor. I found out a little bit about it on Saturday when I had a couple of questions and then I popped up with a third. He says, I thought that was your final one. He was just kidding. I said, well, something came in my head, and he was just laughing. And everybody around me, my colleagues, were laughing. I'll take a laugh at my expense all day long to keep things loose around the media availability, which the Marlins do such a great job because they hold it in the clubhouse, or rather in the dugout, not the clubhouse, where everybody has access to the manager and not just a handful of people. And Eric, you bring up an interesting point. The 1997 one under Wayne Huizenga, let's face it, they paid good money for that one, and then they had Cabrera before, but they just simply couldn't financially keep all those players, and that's what led to the Cabrera trade. We'll move on.
So the 03, they scouted their players. A lot of the players they acquired from the 97 fire sale were on that team.
Yeah, well, that's true. So let's talk about the Cleveland Guardians. They actually lead the American League Central with a 45-45 record. And believe it or not, the Detroit Tigers are still in third place, 5.5 games out. It's unbelievable. I'll just say this, the Tigers are fortunate to be in the position and the division that they're in. I know they were once in the American League East and worked their way out of it to end up in the American League Central. So, Eric, I'll go around right to left. Eric, some thoughts about the AL Central division?
It's more garbage than probably more garbage than all the other garbage that happens.
We have the Central. The NL Central is just as bad.
Not nearly as bad as the AL Central. The AL Central is probably more garbage than the stuff in Lake Michigan. I think obviously Scott, we've talked about this all the time with Cleveland. Terry Francona and his staff give that team a chance to win night in and night out. You and I have said never count out Terry Francona because his teams will always put up a fight. They did it last year against the Yankees. And Terry Francona nearly won a World Series in 2016, which happened to end the Cubs curse that year. And But as far as the AL Central is concerned, that kind of just shows you just how cheap a lot of that ownership is. Kansas City. I mean, the Illiches, they'll spend when they have to or need to. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, George, but they're not the younger Illich is not his father, and his father would dump money into guys to try and win day in and day out. Obviously, Jerry Reinsdorf has proven that he's more cheaper than a used car salesman. But as far as and then as far as Cleveland goes, I mean, they develop from within, and they do an outstanding job at doing it, particularly with pitchers like guys like Tanner Bibby have just come up. But it just comes to show you that just how cheap the most owners are in that division. It's unbelievable. The White Sox are in a big market and really shouldn't be as cheap as they are. But Jerry Reinsdorf he refuses to give money. You might as well call him Scrooge Reinsdorf.
All right. Well, you know what? We are going to segue over to George Eichhorn since there's enough George Eichhorn mentions from Mr. Katz. Go ahead, George.
Yeah, well, thank you for the setup there. Obviously, the Cleveland Indians, the Guardians, they deserve to be in first place. They have done a good job. Terry Francona, I agree with what you said, despite his illnesses and physical limitations sometimes. I mean, Cleveland has traditionally got the job done the last 2 years. Minnesota's been a big disappointment this year so far. And obviously Kansas City's in the basement. And like you said, the White Sox, I don't know. They don't have a plan even to contend anymore. I agree with you there. Detroit situation. I mean, people here are just, we're still in it, but it really hasn't become what I call pennant chase fever. Maybe things will heat up if they stay that close. But they're not going to alter from their plan either. Scott Harris is not going to go out and try to acquire a lot of talent just to make the playoffs, because they're on a roadmap right now, which is trending obviously towards their young talent, developing the young pitchers, developing the young hitters, Riley Green and Spencer Torkelson and these guys. And then obviously he sprinkled some veterans, but you see, he wasn't afraid to get rid of Jonathan Scope, who's done nothing for this team the last year or two. So they got him out of there. And Cabrera, of course, they're going to get rid of that contract after this year. So I know that young Yelich is not spending the money, but right now I don't think he has to spend a whole lot right now. And like I said, they're not going to go out and try to just buy this division, even though it would be exciting for the fans of Detroit. Don't get me wrong, to make the playoffs. I don't see it happening. I think that they're still going to finish in probably third or fourth place, but it is a lousy division. I agree with you guys. It's lousy right now.
All right, before we turn over to Jacob, Candy Ebling has some good stats I want to put up about the Marlins. We'll do it while I have a moment. Opening day, the Marlins had a 23.6% chance of making the postseason. Now it's increased to 67.6%.
Wow.
Yeah, that's incredible. And then we'll back it up with another comment that she has. Plus 33 increase in batting average from last year. Well, yeah. When Brian De La Cruz was hitting the cover off the baseball whore, Hayes Soler, who was signed as a free agent a year ago, Jacob ought to know a lot about him. And, of course, Luis Arias, I could see where that 33 plus 33 increase from last year. So good stuff, Candy. All right. So, all right, go ahead. You got to take your crack at Cleveland, Jacob.
Well, I'm going to say this. We bring it up with Cleveland, and it's like, and they're always around. You guys brought up Detroit. Here's the thing with the White Sox. Those goofy, moronic, emotional nitwit fans, just like my Bears fans are, emotional nitwits, that'd be White Sox and Bears fans are the exact same. They always think that there's something better out there, and then it gets worse every time. La Russa may not have been what he used to be, but they were still over 500 with him. It can always get worse, but the emotional nitwits can't get it. They are always in the now. They think that this is Madden, or they think this is the MLB 2K, where you can just push a button. That's not how any of this goes. Cleveland is around for one single reason. It's because they're consistent. They keep something. The only thing not consistent about Cleveland is their name. Everything else is consistent with them. Francona is a great manager for that reason. It stays around. The pitching is going to stay around. Maybe it drives the fans nuts that they don't hit all the time, that they don't have they're off and on where they're hitting. But in the end, it's just a consistent team. Are they going to win a World Series? No. But here's the thing. I'd love to see the Cubs get there. Are they going to win a World Series? No, because the Braves are going to. Period. They are just that good. But you have for the Cleveland has to stay this way. The Guardians have to stay this way. They have to do this because in this era, especially with guys like Ohtani out there, and no, they're not going to get Ohtani, but get the point. You have to be able to be that one that looks like they're going to win to get somebody like him. It's a different, more competitive world. You can't just blow it up anymore. Not in that way.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you one thing. Our next topic is the ultimate win-win.
Did you have something, Eric? Did you have something?
Well, here's the thing, though. I mean, okay. As far as blowing up teams go, it's not like what it used to, where you got the Astros who tanked their way to a couple World Series. But now with the MLB draft kind of becoming, I don't know if the NBA lottery I don't know if that's the right comparison. But now with the lottery, though, it's kind of like discouraging teams from tanking because they won't necessarily be guaranteed the number one pick after last year when it was where I felt like the entire league was doing a tankathon.
Right.
Yeah,
That's a good point.
Yeah, that is a good point.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you know what? The best trades are the ones that are win-win situations. For the longest time, we've talked about Luis Arias doing wonders for the Marlins, but let's not forget the other guy in that trade too. His name is Pablo Lopez, who actually made the All-Star team. He's 5-5, 3.89 earned run average, 138 strikeouts, 29 walks, and 111 pitches, 111 innings pitched. 18 games all started. I've always liked Pablo Lopez, always will, but I understand the Marlins needed hitting, and they couldn't have hit it better with Arias. But let's give some prompts, okay, Eric, to Pablo Lopez. I'm happy that he's in the same All-Star game that Luis Arias, who's been getting all the publicity.
I mean, I've always liked Pablo Lopez. I mean, I had, when last year was in Miami, I missed an opportunity to go and see him play. Although it was the time where he got dead arm and he got absolutely shellacked by the Rangers that day. But I digress. Right. But Lopez has always been a good pitcher. He eats innings. He's very durable. He's always been a guy you can depend on. He's a borderline ace pitcher, and and now that him and Arias are in the All-Star game, mission accomplished for both teams. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, George.
Yeah, I agree. Pablo Lopez has been a consistent player, good pitcher. I felt along the way, and I'm happy for him. That's great. It is a win-win situation, Scott, like you described it. There's a lot to be said for getting pitching and keeping pitching, that especially when it comes to starting pitching, because we've been through hell and back in Detroit this year with every one of the starting pitchers being knocked out due to illness or due to arm fatigue or whatever else is bothering them. So you can never have enough good pitching in baseball, especially in your starting pitching. And Pablo's done a good job, and I'm happy for him too. And like you said, it's good to see them both make the All-Star team. It's going to be an exciting game tomorrow night in Seattle, and I know they'll do a good job for the fans, putting on a nice show. But Pablo's done a nice job. Good.
Well, let me tell you before I turn it over to Jacob, the Marlins have even more pitching in their system. Yuri Perez looked pretty good for a while, but you got Johnny Cueto ready to come back. So they got a 5-3, and I've seen the kid pitch. He's really sensational. Mm-hmm. So the Marlins, and they have Max Meyer, who is unfortunately undergoing Tommy John surgery. But the Marlins, to me, when it comes to pitching, they're stacked, and they are really stacked. All right, we'll turn it over to Jacob to comment on Pablo.
Do you know what kind of pitcher Pablo Lopez is year after year? I mean, the type that you get. He's the guy that he might be on a good team or a bad team. And regardless of anything, he's the one that someone trades for when the big powerhouse needs him.
That's true.
Just the fact that Miami's got it, That's the lucky part because he's the first to go. He is the first to go to the Dodgers. You know, they got that 3 spot that they need open because someone got hurt. He's the one. Let's just say pretend that they didn't get it for a second. He's the one that takes Jacob deGrom's place in Texas. He's that guy that takes that, and he ends up winning more than DeGrom would have anyway because DeGrom's out after 3 innings.
Yeah.
He's that guy. It's like just the fact that they're doing so well, people forget all of this. That consistency is always the one where the Dodgers, the Rangers, the Braves, you know, the ones that are going to be buying at the trade deadline. He's the first to go every time. So just the fact that they're able to keep him now, that's great for him.
Yeah, I believe if I recall correctly that he got an extension to stay with the Twins. So I think the Twins have a good piece of that starting rotation. And I love Pablo. But in this particular instance, they needed a hitter, Luis Arias or Pablo Lopez, and yet meanwhile in Seattle, they're both in the same All-Star team. It doesn't get any better than that. All right, well, I guess our big topic of the night is will Shohei Ohtani be traded by the deadline? Okay, Jacob.
See, that's the tough part. I don't know, and it's because he's going next year. He's going out. So the one thing that you got to put into your head is, will he go next year, and will he leave the team that he's with there? Like, say that he went to, hypothetically, to the Cubs. Will he go? And that's the thing that you have to ask that question. When you pick him up for this trade deadline, do you keep him? That's where I'm like, will anybody? There are people that go, okay, the Dodgers, the Braves, the whatever. You got to ask that question. Do you keep him more than a rental?
Right.
And that's where the tough part lies. Do you keep him more than that? I don't know. Of course, I mean, my little part of me would love him on the Cubs. Just I've given my options on that type of thing. But it's better to be able to sign the big contract, even if it's going to just break you. It's better to sign the contract and knowing that you've got him at least 3-4 years out of the 12 that he says he signs. But it's almost a guaranteed rental unless you've got a team that's a backup that they'd be able to just sign him right off the bat. So to me, I don't know. He might just stick it out. How many are going to be that? I mean, really by itself, is it stupid to get him now because they can lose him?
Now, before I go over to George, Candy Ebling has a little more details on Pablo's contract guarantee, $73.5 million over 4 seasons from 24-27. There you go. There's the contract info. Okay, George.
Well, he's sick of losing. Okay. Here's a quote that he made through his interpreter. He says, "These feelings get stronger year by year. It sucks to lose. He wants to win, so it gets stronger every year." They've lost all 6 years. I mean, they haven't made the playoffs all 6 years that Ohtani has been there. He's tired of losing. I think the Angels, I don't know. That's a good question. I mean, depends on what they can get as far as a haul goes, but I don't see him coming back to California, to the LA Angels next year. And I think they've got to be really smart. They have to be very careful because, like Jacob said, there's teams out there that'll take him. And some may be able to try to sign him. Some may not as far as the contenders go. But I know one thing he will not come back to the Angels if they, again, fail to make the playoffs this year. And I think, like the interpreter said, he wants to win. It sucks losing, and he wants to win. But, Scott, that's a good question. I do not know if the Angels will have enough guts to make the move. Well, they can make that move if they feel they're getting a lot in return. And I don't know quite what they're going to expect to get in return, obviously being as he's headed for free agency next season.
Eric?
Oh, boy. Well, obviously the equation changes now because originally I thought there was no way they were going to trade him because the Angels were, not having a great year, but, they at least were kind of, in a team where you can't just close your eyes on them. But now that Mike Trout's out for, who knows how long, the equation can change because now it's Ohtani and everyone else on that team, aside from maybe Hunter Renfroe, but even he's kind of fallen off. I just I knowing the Marinos and knowing just how dumb they are as owners. I really, and especially because they haven't really made any investment in their farm system. They got nothing coming up right now. Nothing, zero. They are like it wouldn't shock me if they are at the bottom of the league. And although they're a contending team who have farm systems that aren't producing right now because they've kind of used that, which that happens, that's normal. But they themselves are in the worst shape they can be as a franchise. I know the Marinos want to make him an angel for life. They've even said this during the offseason, quoting and saying, we want to make, to the effect of, we want to make sure Ohtani is here for the rest of his career. Which, what else are they going to say? Oh, we don't want him here. Like, what else are they going to say in that situation?
Yeah.
Because they've already kind of pissed off enough people in the Anaheim area. But I really think the Angels are going to try and make this work, because the trade itself is going to take days, because I can guarantee you a team that picks him up doesn't want to have him as a rental, because they'd have to mortgage their farm. They'd have to trade just about every top prospect available to get him. They're going to want him to agree to an extension, and they're going to have to put opt-outs in there, because Ohtani probably wants freedom. And who doesn't? I mean, if I can determine who my employer is and everyone else can, then people who play a sport for a living should as well. But I don't see the Angels making the deal because they want to keep him. They've said they want to make him an angel for life. That's the messages that they've been giving out to everyone in the game, as well as what little of their fan base is left. But I don't see it. Ohtani wants to win. I know that in Japan, loyalty is a big thing, which, even his agent kind of said, even if he comes back to the Angels. So you got to think that, although it's, you got to think at least the doors at the very least open. At the very least, there's you could still walk through it if you want to. I know, his agent did say that, and loyalty is a big thing over in Japan culturally. But I don't see them making the move, because whoever gets him doesn't want to have him just for a year or just for a part of, or for the rest of the year. They want him long term. So they're going to want to get him to do the extension right then and there. And I'm not sure if Ohtani wants to do that yet. I know that he's already said that he wants to explore the market and see what he can get. And rightfully so. The guy's probably going to sign the biggest contract Major League Baseball has ever seen. It's probably going to shatter a bunch of it's probably going to shatter Max Scherzer's and everyone else's contracts that we've seen over the years.
Okay, I see.
The fact of the matter is,
go ahead.
But the fact is, I don't see the Angels giving him up. It's just going to be too complicated of a deal.
All right, I see a couple scenarios here. Number one, if they don't trade him, they definitely want to put as many butts in the seats as they can before the season's over. That's item number one.
Right.
Might as well enjoy the draw while you have it. Number two, a perfect scenario is that he gets traded to the Dodgers, and then you can eliminate any speculation. He doesn't have to leave Southern California. And then we'll see what the Dodgers can give the Angels in terms of compensation. Those are the ideal scenarios. But the one intrinsic point that we have to mention is the fact that he's a two-way player, and what team will be able to accommodate his ability to be a two-way player. The Angels
the biggest thing that I was bringing with that is that's the one thing that worries me with the two-way players, because if there is the risk of it's the poker thing, and you got all those things, but if there's if there's a bad beat, I'll use a poker term. If there's a bad beat out there really fast, you lose 2 slots because he's pitcher now. So you have to replace two different positions.
Very true.
And that's the big thing. And one of the things that we have to understand with something like this is the whole thing with loyalty. Ask Mike Trout. He got loyal, then he got hurt, and now the way that his bargaining is not going to be the same as great as he's been, and the numbers he's gotten. It's not going to be great because he's had injuries the last couple of years. He played the loyalty game. No, nobody in this league is going to be that loyal to their teams anymore, especially watching Trout.
Well, here's the thing with Trout too. I mean, it was more than just loyalty for Trout. People viewed Trout as the face of baseball, like that guy, and rightfully so. But Trout didn't really want to have that pressure of dealing with being the face of baseball. So he hit out in Anaheim with that big contract, which in hindsight, and I thought about it then too, I thought he was nuts because the Angels, both then and now, were going nowhere. And it's amazing to think how Ohtani's never even seen the postseason.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's an interesting topic because I know the trade deadline is coming. I know it's certainly heavily a trending topic.
Mm-hmm.
I think, but again, the biggest thing that I'll say with Ohtani is this, okay? The rental idea, where are you going to go? I mean, you can go into the Mets. I mean, the Mets
No.
can be, and I'll get to that a little later, not now. So where's he going to go? I mean, there aren't many options that could really afford him, and I just think right now the Angels are going to hold on to him.
I got one.
Well, okay, let me finish. Okay,
My bad.
But the reality is how many options do you really have? Is really what you have. All right, go ahead. Where's your option?
The Dodgers, and here's why.
Oh.
Because they let Trey Turner go, they let a bunch of other players go because they were trying to reset their tax to go after him. And Ohtani has even said that he'd prefer not to play on the East Coast.
Well, yeah, I mean, but Eric, you're giving everybody the most obvious choice. Okay, if you look at everybody on this panel, okay, you obviously say the Dodgers. I'm definitely going to say the Dodgers. I find it hard to believe that Jacob and George might disagree with that, knowing that they let a lot of salary go to accommodate Ohtani's money. So I don't think it's pretty, unless anybody out here wants to throw another team out there, but
Seattle.
I think we'll agree on that.
How about Miami?
What about
How about the Cubs?
I think Seattle, because Seattle, Seattle's right there. They've got Ichiro on speed dial, and Ichiro had a pretty successful career with the Seattle Mariners, and will soon be in the Hall of Fame. I think if Seattle gets him, that will put them over. That will put them over the hump, and he will obviously be welcome there because they'll view him as Ichiro, except better. And that could potentially put them in position to make a run at a World Series, something that the Mariners fans don't know the feeling of.
Yeah, but you know what though?
Enormous Asian community.
Yes,
but you do bring up an interesting point though. Seattle certainly has had some good Japanese players, so there's a following for. I think Nintendo once owned that team. Weren't they a Japanese company?
They own parts of it still.
Yep.
Oh, do they?
They
So
don't
there's certainly the
anymore.
Japanese connection there. All right. Well, one more topic before we go to parting shots. LSU pitcher Paul Skenes selected first overall by the Pittsburgh Pirates. Now, I had a guest, Kevin Anderson, on here who talked about the fact that Skenes played for the Air Force Academy and then transferred to LSU. I guess the real question is he the savior for the Pittsburgh Pirates, and can they afford him? All right, Eric, make this one brief because I want to get to our parting shots.
I mean, no one player is a savior. I mean, everybody's viewing him as this next guy. As far as the Pirates go, well, Bob Nutting better go dig into the money he saved up in those piggy banks because the way the salaries go with college players these days. It's going to. I don't know who he's represented by, but I know that good old Scotty B over in California is gonna make him pay.
Oh yeah, no doubt about that. Go ahead, George.
No, you can't say that he's going to be a lock on anything right now. I mean, the kid's had a great college career. Obviously, he's a good choice for Pittsburgh to make as the number one. But hey, I've seen it. I've seen it so many times. We've all seen it with these young hurlers come. You draft them, and then years later, we're sitting through this situation in Detroit. Possibly Matt Manning, but Casey Mize injured 2 or 3 times already, and he was a top pick for Detroit. No, I mean, you just never know what you're going to get. Obviously, the amateur draft is kind of a different kind of draft. Not as bad as hockey, where you got to wait 5-6 years sometimes for those guys to develop. But I mean, I'm not wishing the guy bad luck. Don't get me wrong, but no, it cannot turn around a program. One player is not going to turn around that Pittsburgh Pirate situation. But they made the safe choice in taking him. No question about it. I'm glad they did.
Yeah, let's not forget Steven Strasburg, obviously the national hopes, but injuries have derailed. Go ahead, Jacob.
He's closer to being Steve Carlton, 27 wins for a 59-win team, than he is to being the lifesaver. It's just true. No one really is. I mean, he can. If he is as good as they say, he'll have a lot of 2-1 games, win or lose. It's like the Pittsburgh still doesn't have a lot of hitters. They still don't have a lot of hitters. They just don't. Okay, they got O'Neal. Was it O'Neal Cruz?
Yeah, they got Cruz.
Okay, exciting.
Brian
but
Reynolds.
I am not. But who are they going to get in any kind of free agency? Who's going to want to come to Pittsburgh? This isn't the Steelers.
Nothing won't
Where
pay
you
him.
want to go. It's like, this isn't the Steelers. I mean, Shelton is not Tomlin. No one wants to go play for them. That's the thing. You're not going to go. We talked about Ohtani. Ohtani's not going there. Who's going to want to do that thing? So it's like, no. Like I said, give him a couple of years, some big amount of wins, 2-1 wins, and then he'll go to the Dodgers.
Jacob, I disagree because I've heard great things about Derek Shelton. The players like him. The guy's certainly gotten a lot out of the team this year. It's not Derek Shelton that's the issue. It's good old Bobby Yen in Pittsburgh because he won't pay him.
Good, but he's got the worst, absolute worst, probably one of the worst winning records. And it's like, I know you're talking about nutting, but they're not going to Pittsburgh for that. They have a bad reputation. They got like 2 playoffs in 25 years.
That's on nutting. Derek Shelton can only do so much with this team.
Well, are we going to say this? But here's the thing: are we going to say the same for Lloyd McClendon?
Well, Lloyd McClendon was a different animal. I will say though. But as far as Derek Shelton is concerned, he's gotten a lot out of that team this year. And as far as the team goes in free agency, Bob Nutting has shown you time and time again that he is not the Rooneys. He will not pay them. He will pocket the cash almost as bad as John Fisher does in Oakland.
They had an extension. They gave him an extension with their one winning side, and they've gone like 25 under 500 cents.
Well, again, it goes back to Nutting refusing to pay his guys.
Yeah, but you could at least be 500. He's made his mistakes himself. Well, and you're right. Nutting's not good. You're correct. He is not good. Sheldon's just okay. Sheldon could be Ross. He could be that guy that you could put in the minor leagues and have to learn whatever. You could do this thing either way. I could say this with David Ross. But by itself, what you're saying, that the people like him and everything, he still doesn't. I mean, is he going to win in New York? I don't think so. I don't think he's that good of a manager.
He was not. He's not even qualified to manage in New York. And I was going to say David Ross is no better, but he's just there because of But as far as the Pirates go, Clint Hurdle had a pretty good run with that team.
Yeah,
and he managed to get them into the postseason. Heck, he even won a Central Division while he's at it. But Hurdle eventually left because he got tired of the cheapness of good old Bobby Nutting.
And there's a lot, and we can say that part, and it's like we can say that, we can agree with that. But here's the thing. With that reputation, say that Nutting wasn't there. Can you get the people? I mean, there are some exciting teams. The Braves are exciting. The Dodgers are exciting.
Well, during the night,
it's more than just, okay, I'm going to go put the shell out. They don't want to shell out the money. It's going to be more than that. It's like when the Braves are that good, the Dodgers are that good, the Cubs might get there eventually again. It's like there's a lot of excitement going to come around. Miami is exciting. Pittsburgh's down on the totem pole right now.
Well, for the better part of the middle 2010s, the Braves were borderline mediocre to borderline bad, and it just so happened they happened to scout extremely well, despite doing some shady things on the side. And the great thing about that Braves team is a lot of that team is scouted and developed, and that's when they start to spend the money on the free agents. But that's what the Braves have been able to do. I guess combine the principles that the Rays have been able to show us they do over the years, and also it helps that you have Brian Snitker, who's who I think is a pretty good manager.
Terrific manager, terrific, and he was in the minors forever. This was my point about Ross and going to the thing. Snitker was there forever, and he's a terrific manager.
Jim Leland was in the minors for a long time too before he took the Pirates job during the 90s. That same Pirates team where he had had the whole Sid Bream not happen, they might have won a World Series with Barry Bonds.
He was in the minors. His cigarettes were in the majors.
Well, I know that. I know that he would even blow smoke rings on the TV.
Hey, George, I got to tell you this. There's nothing more satisfying to see two guys that have never been on the air together go back and forth, and then I get to watch this banner. I love it. I think you guys are great.
No, Eric and I will get along great.
Yeah.
Oh, I know. I could tell. You know, when I bring Eric on with new people, you know, he intrigues me because I know his baseball knowledge is off the charts. And Jacob, I know, you know, you're Rick Curdy 10.0, where you're able to go ahead and take the opinions 10 times greater. No disrespect toward Rick, but you know, I mean, that's why when I put certain topics on, I know you're going to give me everything you've got, like you do on Pundit. But I think I enjoy one day. I'll just say this: I enjoy, George. I don't know about you, but I enjoy the banner back and forth between Eric.
Oh yeah, I'm just sitting back listening.
It's either like watching ping pong or tennis back and forth.
Exactly.
Plus, you got a couple old guys that want to watch the young guys go at it.
Oh, well.
Yeah.
That doesn't hurt either.
Right.
They're having a couple beers at the bar, and it's like, should we stop them? Nah.
Yeah.
No, I wouldn't. Hey, listen, I have a rule. If I see a great debate going on amongst people, I let you go.
Yeah.
Luckily, I don't have 2 hours tonight, or you two would be going back and forth 2 hours.
Yeah.
But don't worry. Now that I see this combination again, I won't hesitate to go back to it again for round 2.
I'd be happy to. No question.
Well, we will.
Eric,
I
hope you watch one of our pundits Sunday. It's a different type of show.
Awesome.
Well, you know what? I'll give you a little thing here before. You might want to bring Eric on here as a pundit's views guy before you decide to end that and go to your other thing going on. I can only imagine what that would be like for you.
Oh, absolutely. And it's like, before we go on another way, but no, it's like, just see if you could catch our show Wednesday nights at 8, Derek, because it's a different type.
I will.
Yeah.
Scott has fun with it. George,
or we might even invite him out as a guest on that one. What do you think about that?
Oh, he'll have to be ready. It's a different ball game.
Oh yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, right now, let's get ready for parting shots. I'm having a blast. That's all I can say. All right, Eric, give me your parting shots.
Well, the Yankees let go of hitting coach Dylan Lawson this past week. I think it was the right move. I was surprised Brian Cashman made the move mid-season because generally, you know, firing coaches mid-season is just not a good idea just because the talent, because teams are kind of the guys you're kind of aiming for are, you know, already subject to the contracts of their teams, and they obviously have to go through the entire year. But I'm pretty optimistic about them bringing in the mayor, Sean Casey. Terrific, a really consistent hitter during his time in the majors. Was very, you know, got on base a lot. One of the smarter hitters in baseball too. And we'll see how it goes because he's just signed for the rest of this year. I'm personally excited. He's constantly been around the game, and to be truthful, I'm excited to see how it works because he's talking about, he said all the right things today, and I'm personally excited to see where this thing goes because who knows, maybe it might be the long-term solution.
George.
Well, I'm going to go back to my parting shot to Comerica Park, 2005, the Home Run Derby, and I was there. I was covering that for my paper, and the Tigers were host to a show that I've never quite seen again. Bobby Abreu of the Phillies, sellout crowd of over 41,000 on hand, 24 home runs in a single round, setting the major league record at that time. It has since been broken, of course. 41 home runs overall. He hit the longest home run in Comerica Park history, even though it wasn't a regular season game, but 517 feet. He smashed one of those dingers. 41 home runs, guys, in that. It was an unbelievable home run derby that night, and it was great. It was a great opportunity, obviously, for myself to cover it. Johan Santana and Miguel Cabrera ran out with the Venezuelan flag to drape all over Bobby Abreu when he was declared the winner of the Home Run Derby. A night I will never forget in 2005 here at Comerica Park in downtown Detroit.
All right, go ahead, Jacob.
Oh, yeah. And one of the things about baseball right now, we're talking about the home run derby. This is the thing about the home run derby, though, the last few years. It's wonderful to watch. Tremendous game. It's kind of, in my own opinion, it's kind of like what the dunk contest used to be with all the stars. Now, what we're going to be wondering is if it goes the way of the slam dunk contest that the NBA did, where you have people you do not know. And the reason I say this is most of the people over the last few years that won that thing start out and struggle for 2 weeks. Different type of swing, different type of swing, you're just swinging hard the whole time around. Mind you, you're tired, that's just one day. It's just a different type of swing. Then you start struggling because it's in your head. And you have to wonder, will you ever get, will it be 4 or 5 years down the road that it becomes the NBA All-Star game, because they're wondering about the second half, and it's such a long year. And it's like, and then let's just say that the stars want to do this, okay? Let's just say that they want to do this. Do they ask to go down to 144 games, 154 games? Asked to get down. Do they ask for there to be the less games in the regular season? I'm just asking this point because it's such a long year, 162. And I'm not saying it's great for us fans, but you have to wonder how tired they are. And would an all-star game, the home run derby, be worth it to some people in the next 4 or 5 years? Things that people think I'm funny now, life changes. Life changes fast. It's come at us quick. So I just have to wonder, because right now Adley's been there, and then Robert's been there. How long before we start seeing people we've never met?
Well, that's true. Let me touch on a couple of those points. Number one, baseball will never be under 162. I guarantee you that. Number two, though, you do bring up a valid point, though, Jacob, about whether or not these guys are going to want to do it year in and year out if it affects the rest of their season, knowing that after all, they're going after the big prize. So you make a lot of good points. My parting shot is simply this. I never thought I'd see the day the Mets 42 up, 48 down, fourth in the NL East, and the San Diego Padres 43 up, 47 down, fourth in the NLS. Free spenders during the offseason could be sellers at the trade deadline. Who would have thought? So we'll see. And we talk about the money game. And once upon a time, the Tampa Bay Rays had a 13-game winning streak to start off, and now they're only 2 games in front of the Baltimore Orioles.
Well, it's a long season. What that does.
Right. Well, some storylines to go out there and monitor as we go on forward. So, all right. With that said, Eric, let everybody know how they can get a hold of you.
You can follow me on my Twitter at Sports Team News, or you can follow me at my blog at bellyupsports.com, where I'm writing about all things baseball. Okay,
you're next, Jacob.
Sunday nights, Basket Bros. Monday nights, the pundit views, and thank you here. Every once in a while I might do that. Who knows? Tuesday night, and also Sundays I've been invited whenever the time comes on with Scott with one of their shows with the Professor and the Pundit. So we'll see with that one. Tuesdays I'm off. Wednesdays is the Pundit's Pundit. It's the Sports Exchange, and then Confidential. Thursdays building a show back on called whenever the time comes called Yin and Yang, which is off sports. And then once in a while the Gauntlet calls me on. So I stay busy, plus working on a couple movie ideas.
Yeah, the only reason that one didn't happen yesterday is yours truly ran out of gas. Otherwise, you will be on the Professor. And
you were on the side of the road somewhere, and it was.
Oh, you are. Don't worry. You're definitely. I'm working on some other angles for that show.
You missed my phone call while you were at it.
Yeah, no, I know. I was totally out of gas, but no, you're going. When we do our next show, Jacob, you're going to be on it. All right, George, the author
of the Detroit Sports Broadcasters on the Air. Ernie Harwell, Van Patrick, Ray Lane, Paul Carey, oh my God, Bruce Martin, Bud Lynch, you go on and on. Scott's in the book too. The book's available. There's a link at the end of my column, which is in the Motor City Tribune under the South Florida Tribune banner. And you can purchase the book from Arcadia and Amazon. Also, you can hear me on this show, 108 Stitches, Sports Exchange. Whenever Scott needs me on other shows, I'm glad to be part of it. I was having fun on Basket Bros a few times, so it's been a lot of fun. You can read me also at the Detroit Monitor newspaper if you're here locally in Detroit. You can reach me at gicorn@yahoo.com and on Twitter at SandGSports99.
Well done. I'll tell you, I like putting crews together. We had a dynamite one tonight. I should point out one last time that 108 Stitches Baseball Talk is being broadcast around the world. The audio version of 108 Stitches Baseball Talk can be heard on iHeartRadio, Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever you get your podcasts. Please hit the red subscribe button on YouTube, South Florida Tribune. We're striving for 1,000 subscribers. Please also comment, like, and share the broadcast. Want to be a guest? No problem. Participate in the chat room is one way to do it, or send topic ideas to South Florida Tribune at gmail.com. If you want to advertise cost efficiently, call me at 954-304-4941. We broadcast live on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. Our website is www.southfloridatribune.com. Our Twitter information is at Tribune South. Candy Ebling is behind the scenes in the chat room, wherever. Coming up later this summer, the Motor City Mad Mouth show will be debuting on Eagle Corporation Media Studios in Boca Raton, Florida, owned by Dr. Edwin Hernandez. We'll keep you posted. Eagle Corp is a technology-based company here in South Florida, and I am the president of broadcasting for Eagle Corporation as well, and the media studios, and I have a lot of great plans for this fledgling operation that I'm pleased to be a part of. So, meanwhile, really enjoyed this broadcast tonight. And anytime I can get new crews, it's an education for me. And I can tell you nothing to me. I think that I'm going to give a co-MVP to Eric Katz and Jacob Christner, because the debate here between you two was absolutely fantastic. Or as Tony the Tiger would say, with the Frosted Flakes, you guys are great. I don't have the ability to go that because I'm getting hoarse in my throat. So, but that said, I want to thank everybody again for joining us on this edition of 108 Stitches Baseball Talk, and we'll catch you the next time. Meanwhile, take care, everybody. God bless, and we will see you the next time.